Hello, my dear viewers. Welcome to a new episode. In 2012, a diaper company called Huggies made a new marketing campaign, and its slogan was, "Have dads put Huggies to the test." The meaning behind the campaign was that if the diapers survived the father's neglect and their ignorance of the ways to deal with babies, their diapers, and the process, then these diapers are definitely durable in comparison to the competitors. Are you listening, Pampers? They meant that if fathers managed to change for the babies with their diapers without anything go wrong, they can change for the world. Because the relationship between fathers and babies is just like ours, we know that we exist but never met. Anyway, in June 2013, an father-insulting advertisement was released, when Clorox posted on their website saying, "Like dogs or other house pets, new dads are filled with good intentions but lacking the judgment and the motor skills to execute well." A father. This flared up angry reactions. People were upset, leaving comments and writing posts attacking the ad. They even reacted with these red angry emojis. Clorox deleted the post afterwards, but what's interesting, and you know it's rare when I'm interested. Actually, it's not that rare, but I won't say that. What's interesting is that we live in a world ruled by men. We live in a patriarchal social system. We find that among 193 countries in 2017, only 16 of them were ruled by women. This was also on the house level, that it's known that the householder is the man. Scientists think that this system started over 10,000 years ago when agriculture started. Man has been the leader since we learned how to farm, if not before. This begs the question, what brought men so low? Why do we make fun of them? And make fun of their skills? What's also interesting is that despite man's sovereignty over the world as a father, he's almost invisible. Who's invisible? Abo Mead. Then who is this man on the couch with his undershirt and keeps asking for tea? Gianluca Zambrotta? Your description is one of the limiting images for a father, as someone with roles mostly outside the house. His main responsibility is the family's income, while other things like the house and kids, that's undoubtedly for the mother. The father just sits there like a guest, eats some food, sleeps, and goes to work. So you'd find someone like Medhat Saleh in a song saying, "I'm the father who's unintentionally absent. I'm the one who prays for a help God sent. I'm the carrier, the worker, the doctor." Oh, Abo Mead, you reminded us of the good old days, when the lyrics and music were good. Things were better. Knock it off, you hasty. You know, when was this song released? It was released on Father's Day in 2022. Do you even know, my friend, since you're intellectual and erudite, and answering however you like, you know when Father's Day is? On the 21st of June. That's Father's Day that no one celebrates. Hold on, Abo Mead. Is there even a Father's Day? Yes, there is. One that fathers don't know about. If not for Medhat Saleh's single per year, no one would have known. Actually, my friend, even in scientific research, which is supposed to be less biased, if you searched for research about mothers in a site like PubMed, which is, by the way, one of the most important scientific research base, if you want to research, look there. You'll find around 277,000 research on mothers. But if you search for research about fathers, you'll find around 51,000 results. Why is no one researching us, Abo Mead? The research on fathers is around fifth the amount of research about mothers. My female friend, I envy you for the world's recognition. Of course she's listening now and saying, "Come take my recognition. Take mine and give me yours. I don't want a holiday, but give me some of your privileges." What would I do with the 21st of March and 277,000 research? Calm down, my friend. I didn't know there's so much repressed towards men. Let me tell you that even science until soon, with its standards, until the 70s maybe, the scientific society didn't see a role for fathers more than his role as a source of sperms or a family provider or source of protection or a role model male figure for boys. Actually, my friend, the scientific neglect of the father until the 70s was really strange. Because the human father, when compared to other mammals, you'd find that he's exceptional, my friend. Because only 5 to 10% of male mammals offered a sort of help for the mother. Just a sort of help. While the other 90 to 95% have their role restricted to only delivering the sperms. These males probably don't even see the offspring. They don't see the children they made. Like Ghaffar el-Amda, Abo Mead? Not exactly, but in a way. Even most of the sociable mammals don't move around in couples, and the male doesn't care for specific young ones as their offspring. They're all parents and offspring, to the point where it's hard to pinpoint fathers in many animals, except by tests like DNA. They don't have the parental role we have, my friends, to know, my female friends, how lucky you are. A male there only gives sperms. Whereas we, as male humans, we give sperm, we carry heavy stuff, we open the sauce jars. This is the new version, by the way, it wasn't here before the update. Also, we stop a cab with our feet. I'm proud of us. None of my female friends can do this in the street. Anyway, there are exceptions in the animal kingdom, like the titties, who are so dedicated to children care to the point where the fathers are always responsible for the baby. Always, abo mead? Except for the feeding time, like you expected. Not just that, these fathers carry the babies 90% of the time, to the point that made many of them lose weight. That's their dad bod. Among the special things in the human father is that his commitment towards the baby continues for many years after birth. In most human societies, there's a long-term marital relationship that is declared buy-in to the society, a contract with responsibilities of the two parties, where they agree to care for the baby. Bipaternal care for babies. We as humans, our babies take a long time to grow. In order to have this baby brain grow properly, it needs time. So the human's childhood period is longer than the animals. My dear friend, there are some animals that can live independently right after being born. The baby elephant after he's born walks, runs, and everything is okay. But when a human baby is born, he isn't at the nutritional independence stage yet. His ability to get food for himself is still out of reach. The thing is, you can't wait for the baby's brain to mature while he's in the womb. That's too much time. So the baby has to be born, while his brain isn't fully grown enough for these survival tasks, making birth easier. But the baby came to the world unable to be independent. Here we need parents be caregivers, parents to provide food, fathers and mothers, and the baby needs more than 18 years and an insane amount of calories in order to reach this nutritional independence. You know how many calories does a baby need to reach that stage? Around 13 million calories. 13 million, abo mead? I finished them in a basbousa last night. Since a mother alone can't provide this amount of calories, that's besides being busy with pregnancy and breastfeeding for a long time, and with the male's excellence in many situations with a better physical power and an instinct in protecting his offspring. If that's okay with you, it was natural for the human male to exceed his role as just a sperm supplier. With the discovery of agriculture more than 10,000 years ago, a male didn't have to stay away from home for long distances, whether on hunting trips or collecting fruits and stuff. He wore the appropriate clothes, cultivated the land, and lived there. A crowned king, eating what he grew, and growing what he eats. In that historical moment, he turned from just a male into a father. You might imagine that a father's journey with his kids starts with pregnancy. But I'm sorry to tell you that this isn't true. Will you tell me why, abo mead? Not sure if I'll tell you, but I'll excite you. Let me go for a dramatic exit, and return in a dramatic entrance, and I may or may not tell you why. In one of the Swedish countries, there are records from the 19th century till present day that register the agricultural produce, the birth rate, the death rate, the diseases, and others. This record is done with high levels of accuracy. This accuracy drove many scientists to use it and study these records to know the nutritional effect on the birth rate. Research then discovered that the grandchildren of the males with plenty of food, like if you're a male with plenty of food. Like if you're a male with plenty of food, your grandchildren would have shorter life expectancy compared to the grandchildren of poor males who didn't have the same nutritional amount. Oh my god, abo mead, so if I was rich and lived well, my grandchildren would be dying in a young age? That's what the study said. Not just that, my friend, they discovered that the poor men's children have less possibilities of death due to diabetes or heart conditions. Okay, still good news, abo mead. It's good for them but not for you. But the same thing applied to mothers. At the end they both eat the same things. Researchers wanted to see if only the man had an effect. They brought a group of male mice with normal weight and got them on a diet with 40% fats. That's a lot. This made them overweight. Then they got these fat mice, and had them mate with female mice of normal weight with normal nutrition. The results was that the offspring of these overweight fathers was indeed more prone to obesity and diabetes. What do we get from this, abo mead? That the nutritional diet of the father throughout his life before pregnancy is essential for the health of the fetus. It's as if the poor grandfathers had sent epigenetic messages through generations to their grandchildren and grandchildren to warn them of poverty. So grandchildren were more ready for it. Does the father's role stop here? Just his nutritional diet? Only nutrition and genes? That's it? The most important role for the father scientifically, biologically, and chromosomically, is determine the sex of the embryo. My dear viewer, humans have two copies of genes, that are carried by chromosomes, one from each parent, except for the sex chromosomes. The mother has XX, while the father has XY. The embryo would either way take an X from the mother, because she has two of the X, so the baby takes one. The father carried the Y. He could give an X and have a female embryo, or give a Y and have a male embryo. Because he's XY, while the mother is XX. The mother can only give X's. Great, abo mead, I'm getting it. No my friend, not great, we humans have to intervene. Dramatic exit, dramatic entrance. In the late 70s of 20th century, Azim Surani, the famous biologist in University of Cambridge, was hired for his dream job in the Robert Edwards Laboratory, who was one of 2 Nobel Prize for Medicine winners. This man started doing his research. The embryo, as you remember from biology class in grade 8, that you attended twice, gets half of his genes from the father and other half from the mother. Really, abo mead? But Surani said, what if we fertilized the mother's ovum with another set of the mother's genes? This experiment was done on mice. We'll take 22 chromosomes from the mother. And put them on 22 chromosomes from the mother as well, then take 2 X's from the moms. Now we have 46 chromosomes from 2 mothers. What if we dispensed fathers altogether in this situation? What would happen? Of course, and thank God, to guarantee our survival on Earth, the experiment failed. All the embryos produced with this method ended up being too small and too fragile to live. All embryos died, and had an abundance of genetic flaws. But unfortunately, failure in science doesn't beg for jokes but for questions. What makes the father's presence so essential on a genetic level if the same genes here are there except the Y chromosome? Why do we need a father? I understand needing a father when we want boys, but if I want a girl, why do I need a father? XX is enough and fits. Surani's theory was that there's definitely something that's special about the father's genes in general. So, these genes won't only be important, but essential for life. Through collaboration with his colleague Davor Salter, they reached to what would be called later, the imprinted genes. These imprints were chemical markers like having a methyl group in the DNA in specific places that affects the function of specific genes, and have it function or not, or affects the way they show up. The follow-up question was obvious: what is the function of these genes? Actually, starting here, things well get rough. Surani noticed that the imprinted genes from the father, the ones we talked about, usually have a positive effect on the growth of the placenta, and consequently the growth of the fetus. And vice versa. The imprinted genes from the mother always try to keep a balance between the growth of the fetus and preserving its nutrients to sustain her life and her ability to reproduce later on. And I though that the father is useless, abo mead. Of course he's important and useful, and anyone tells you something else. Then she's not good at biology. The problem with these imprinted genes is that they're a part of a gene pair that doesn't have a replacement if damaged, so it would lead to disasters. Like we saw earlier, all embryos died. There's a syndrome known as Angelman that results from a damage in the genes from the mother with a working version of the father's, and its opposite is a syndrome called Prader-Willi, resulted from a damage in the genes from the father. At the end, the father isn't a businessman that volunteers with the 23 chromosomes that any male or female person can get from anywhere. No, the father's chromosomes carry irreplaceable genes, and without them the embryo won't be a living fetus. That's the summary. Remember the Medhat Sala song at the beginning? If you thought about it, you would find it somewhat right, because the carrier, worker, Dr. Father's absence from his children is usually out of his hand, it's the environment circumstances. If he lives in a dangerous environment, with wars and tribes killing one another, and wild animals, then the father would either disappear because he was killed or still fighting or trying to discover the area around to decrease its hidden danger. My female friend here would tell me, what male fights tribes? That was back in the old days. Now, his maximum activity is to guard his dinner plates on the table. It's okay my female friend, it's not a lot, do we hear this? And let me tell you that the environment that we live in, despite having less danger from tribes, wars, and dangerous animals, there's also for example threats like poverty, an economical threat. In this case, the father would divide his attention between providing the financial need for his children on one hand, and to spend enough time with them. In the least dangerous environment, his father's role changed into providing bigger opportunities for his children to build social relations that will help him in the future. The father here cares for the name of his kids' schools, the name of the club they'll join and the sport they'll play, the coach training them, and the upbringing and cuddling they get from their mothers. Because the success in this environment doesn't depend on practical skills but on the personal relationships. Let's see an example for this role changing. Remember the titty monkeys? Contemplating about these animals drives us to think, can human fathers reach this level of devotion? Actually, the answer is mostly no. But there are close examples to that in humans. Most famously are the aka people. The fathers of the aka people, my friends, are the creme de la creme. The example that most fathers could be compared to and are hard to be like. In the aka people, the women are the hunters while the fathers take care of the kids. To the point that fathers can give their kids their nipples. Oh my god, abo mead, did it get to that? It got to that there, so make sure my female friend doesn't know of it. If you had a vacation trip next to the aka, don't go. Ignorance is bliss, my friend. Fathers in the aka spend with their babies around 47% of the time, which is more than any fathers on this planet. Mothers of the aka continue hunting until mid-third trimester, 8th month, and get back to hunting after 1 month of giving birth. They don't get the 40 days. Some even hunt while having the baby wrapped around their bodies. But dividing labor on this level doesn't mean that women control everything there, because most of the important tribe roles are usually done by males. Starting from the baby's 3rd month of life, the baby gets full physical connection with one of the parents. Fathers here have no problem carrying the children, and sometimes even take them to their evenings. Imagine getting in the coffee shop holding your son, "Good evening, guys, how is it going?" Then ask for a hookah change and see the waiter changing for his son. Progressive fathers. Let me tell you that this isn't the problem if the baby cried and needed a pacifier. All these qualities made The Guardian during its investigation on the aka to call these fathers as the best fathers in the world. This allowed us to see how the social and environmental factors affect the fathers and children. Until the early 70s, the common perspective on the father's role was that he's a model of masculinity to his male children, a role model. The meaning of masculinity here is the qualities that were connected in the people's minds with toughness and harshness. As we weigh it, to be a man like his father. The truth that scientists discovered in the early 70s that the most important role in the child's social development wasn't the degree of the father's masculinity, but was how close the father and the son are. This means that the stronger the relationship is between father and son, the more good qualities the son would have from his father. Things like this started grabbing the scientists' attention to the father's role in the social development of children, with the most prominent effect being the linguistic development of the child. This started with a research in the University of North Carolina. It uncovered a surprise, that fathers aren't just important for the children's linguistic development but also, the surprise, more important than the mother in teaching the language. Here the father is more important than the mother. This is irrelevant to the mother's educational background. As per the researchers' findings, fathers had unique contributions in developing their children's expressive language. The reason to mostly explain this is that the father spends less time with the children, so since he is less aware with the baby talk linguistics, he doesn't spend much time, so he doesn't focus on using them. He doesn't use the child's vocabulary and expose him to new words all the time that are mostly the real language. There's no such thing as "nana, it's banana." No such thing as "choo-choo, it's just a train," and no such thing as "horsey, it's just a normal horse." So since the father doesn't spend much time with the child, he doesn't know his linguistic choices, so he talk with his own language, the father, and grown-up language. So the baby learns. But according to some scientists, the most important father role was his contribution in preparing the children to deal with the world outside the safe circle and family, which is through rough playing. Yes, just like the parents playing with their kids on TikTok, that's the father's teaching, that's their true use. That's so important. As we see on the cover of this book here, the father is playing with his baby in a different way than a mother does. The mother usually tries to protect her baby while the father throws him up in the air, or plays wrestling with him. He's not a match for your power, man. All the games that the mother is most likely to blame him on doing because they subject her child to danger. But my friend, please take it easy on the man, let him play rough games. That way, the child will learn valuable lessons in reading the competitor's facial expressions, role-playing, accepting the loss, and being steady in unfamiliar situations. The father himself is an important source for the child to acquire social flexibility, which he needs in school, university, and relationships. When a group of researchers watched parents during a swimming lesson. Do the butterfly, God, researchers noticed something strange. The mother naturally tends to protect more, where she mostly stands somewhere she can visually communicate with the child. While the father is usually behind the child, yes, present and supportive, but also forcing him to face his fears. You can't see me, but if something happens, if I'm not busy with my phone, I'll get you. And if I can swim too. Not any kind of playing develops the child's adaptation skills. The most useful playing is the one with less practice of the father's authority and leaving a space for the child to decide in the role playing, not the authoritarian playing with direction and scolding from the father. Also, the father had more effect than the mother in developing the working memory, which is the child's ability to store information and retrieve when needed, and also to pay attention and focus on the important things, and neglecting the unimportant things, and also the ability to self-control. The more focused the father is in parenting since a young age, taking them out, reading them stories, and playing with them, the less chances the child has, especially girls, to develop mental illnesses like depression and anxiety. So the father regularly reading a story for his daughter every day at a young age, this can save her from depression and anxiety when she's 30. The father is extremely important. Since the role of the father in the children's social development is this important, this shows us the amount of injustice mothers get being blamed for kids' behavior. This lady didn't raise her son well. Watch your kids, you're with me. Man, I didn't get them by myself. Raise your kids. Just like we talked about the imprinted genes, let us take a look at the dark side of fatherhood. For example, researchers found that the absence of a father or his bad relationship with daughters is connected to the early adolescent sexuality, and the readiness for dangerous sexual behaviors, like getting into early and unsafe relationships. Another surprise, that the effects on the father and children relationship isn't necessarily one way. You, children, also have responsibility. Let me tell you, that the fetus affects the father who didn't see it yet nor dealt with it. Two researchers, the couple Philip and Carolyn Cowan, noticed changes on the father's behaviors during their wife's pregnancy. Some of them had their weights fluctuate, and others suddenly decided they like beards, others talked about problems and fights that endangered the marriage. This also includes their struggle to express their feelings to their wives and changes in the sexual life and other things. They also noticed that men wanted to eat specific food while their wives are pregnant. You mean that men get cravings, abo mead, while the ladies are pregnant? I let this aka people thing hardly pass. We get cravings? Yes, my friend, you got it right. This led to a group of research on the hormonal changes that happen to husbands while the wives are pregnant. Whoa, abo mead. They did find changes affecting the husband during his wife's pregnancy. How? Researchers Ann Story and Wynne Edwards measured the hormone levels of men and compared them to their wives. It turned out that the male hormone, the testosterone, decreased by 33% around pregnancy. Why does it happen? abo mead. One of the things that explain this phenomenon is the connection between testosterone with hostility and the competitive behavior of males, and the testosterone acts as a stopper for two hormones, dopamine and oxytocin. The first one is the happiness hormone that you get when you eat chocolate, while the other one is the love hormone that makes the father more sensitive and receptive to the baby. This, along with the happiness coming from dopamine increase, strengthens the connection between a father and his child. This doesn't happen with all men, of course. In September 2013, researchers in Emory University concluded that there's a counter-relationship between the testosterone level of fathers and his dedicated effort to care for the child. Meaning, fathers who exert more effort in caring for the child have less levels of testosterone. We can say that our view for women as a hormonal creature with mood swings all through pregnancy is an unfair perspective, because guess what? Similar changes happen to fathers at the same time, even if up until soon were neglected changes. While the hormonal changes of the pregnant woman are connected to a grand physiological process like pregnancy, the hormones of fathers increase and decrease according to their connection to their life partners. There are many factors that affect the amount of father's contribution in raising the children, like the environment, upbringing, genes, and financial status. But the most important of all, based on the researchers, Wynne and others, was the strong relationship between the father and the mother. Wow, abo mead, so the father can be hormonal? Yes, the father, mother, baby doctor, you, and me. This mutual hormonal change continues till after delivery. There's also another myth that's attributed to the mother only, but it sometimes applies to the father. It's known that the mother's aging has a higher rate of miscarriage, fetal malformations, and some conditions like Down syndrome. But the opposite is also valid. With the father's aging, the chances of gene mutation increases, and so does the chances of causing certain conditions like autism, that the fetus's chances of getting is 6 times more if the father's age is above 40 compared to fathers under 30. Also, the chances of getting early bipolar disorder, dwarfism, cleft lip, and the wife's miscarriage increase when the father is over 40. But the most dangerous is schizophrenia, The chances of getting schizophrenia in children of old fathers increases as every year passes by and has chances of 2% with fathers over 40. This is the double of the normal rate with fathers under 30. Always the question, why? The answer is, I don't have one. Then why did you ask? ABO Mead. To tell you I don't know, but it's probable by some scientists that the answer could be that a certain defect happens in producing sperms. To be honest, my friend, the father could be non-essential, meaning that pregnancy and raising kids could happen with his absence, or with a small contribution from him, and 90% of living organisms are proof. But the role of the father is important and useful, and different from the mother's. The father isn't just a temporary substitute for the mother, nor a babysitter until she returns. But him being different from the mother with his relationship with the child is the reason why he's important. It's the reason for biparental care system that consists of a mother and father to this day. The death rate in newborns is 4 times higher if there's no father. These statistics are from the first world countries that have the best healthcare. The title of the father isn't just being the biological one. Many of the hormonal and neurological changes that happen to the father are because he's actively being a parent to his kids. So, we can notice these changes in the stepfather, for example. If he is on the same level of contributing in raising the kids, he'll get the same changes even when he's not his biological father. Although a huge part from the father's excellence in his role is connected to the genes, 80% of his excellence comes from the environment, not genes. This alarms us to the role of upbringing, not just in producing better children but in also, like we said, producing better parents. The father doing his role, not just his child is benefiting, he is as well. Actually, this episode isn't enough to identify the role of the father, because like we said, the research studying fathers are few, they're not enough and late, that's all. I hope you turn out to be a good father like Medhat Saleh, and have your kids see the old and new episodes, look at the sources and subscribe if you're on YouTube. I want to leave a message to my female friend, we're good by the way, thank God. The other creatures are having it way worse, we're a blessing, the human male is a blessing. Why would you treat a blessing like that? Why? Bye my 2 friends.